Hi everyone, this is Judy Warner with the OnTrack Podcast. Thanks for joining us again. Today we are here at the La Jolla headquarters of Altium, and I have with me John Watson of Legrand, and we're going to have a great talk today about just design in general and then some of his vast experience. Before we get going though, I'd like to invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or at Altium Judy on Twitter, and Altium is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So if you are listening on the podcast, be also aware that we record simultaneously on video. So if you want to see our beautiful faces, you can always tune in to Altium's YouTube channel and click under videos, and you'll find that we are recording here in office, which is a rare treat because we do this a lot on Skype. So, John, welcome to the office.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So why don't you start by sharing with our listeners and watchers about what you do at Legrand, and because you really have kind of a wide, you do a lot. I don't know how if you have any time at home ever, but.
No, I don't. No, I'm the senior PCB engineer for Legrand, and we are a conglomerate of several divisions of what's called the building control systems. And these divisions basically go around the world. And in each one of these divisions, we have designers, PCB designers and librarians and people who work on schematics and everything else. So I'm responsible for that. I'm the administrator, also responsible for kind of mentoring them and training them and answering any of their questions that they may have that come up. So we also then make sure that we constantly have the PCB designs that we're working on keep moving, flowing through there. So so that's basically what I do.
Well, what I thought we'd talk about today based on our recent conversation is you kind of drilled down to sort of the basics of designs. Now tell us about how many designers you have overall at Legrand.
We have about 50 right now. We have 50 designers, and a lot of those are some of those are in Asia, and a lot of the rest are in America here.
Okay.
So
you started talking yesterday, it was just yesterday we spoke, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You kind of talked about what I will call the why, what, how, and when.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting way to sort of distill down the design process, but can you start talking us through that, kind of start with the why and the what?
Yeah. I think as designers, we love to jump into the how. We love to give me the schematic and let me dive into the PCB. Let me start laying copper down.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But we never get back to taking a step. And really what has brought this on has been your new Nexus system. With your design processes and your design flow charts that you guys have created. It's really caused us as a company to take a step back and ask the question, what are we doing? It may sound simplistic, but the what is a direction pointer. It's an objective. It's the goal that you put up there. And a lot of times it's kind of skimmed over.
Right.
In designing, because we want to get to the how. We want to get to the interactive routing part of this, and all the exciting tools that we can use and all this and that. But we never take a step back and determine, are we pointed in the right direction?
Right.
Are we accomplishing what we want to start with?
Right.
So, and I would actually what we do is we actually take it a step further back and we ask, why are we doing this?
Right.
The why is the foundation. The why is the motivation of why we're doing this.
Right.
So, because what I've seen in PCB design now, I've been in this for about 20 years, and what I've seen is that we actually we actually have different parameters. people look at PCB design differently.
Of course,
In a company, somebody, for example, the PCB designer looks at a design, and he's looking at, okay, here's my schematic, here's my PCB, here's my trace routing and everything else, you know. The part procurement people, they're concerned about, okay, is this part even available?
Right.
How do we buy this part? How do we buy this component? How do we do this? Then you have upper management who looks at and says, how quickly can we get this thing to market?
Right.
That's their concern. They're not concerned about the routing. The designer gets into the details and he's all, yeah, look, I'm doing differential pairs. and
he's like, yeah, whatever, when do I get it back?
Exactly. The upper management people, they're actually sitting there going, oh, we really don't care. Does it work? When can we get this to market? I've been asked that question several times by vice presidents of companies and things like that. And usually in interviews, they go, we have such a terrible lead time in our designs from concept to market. And by the time we get this whole thing through the process, we're gone. The market is gone.
Right.
So one of their major concerns is, how do we speed this whole process up?
Right.
And one of the things that I've always pushed on is the best way to do that and accomplish it is, first off, know why you're doing something. What are you doing? That gets you pointed in the right direction. And how are you going to do it?
Right.
And that then brings in the how.
Right.
And once you get that established, then you can start talking about how we're going to do this.
Right.
And what tools we're going to use. And those things are not major in any way. Just sit down in one sentence. What are you doing?
Right. Because I think what struck me when you said that is like, well, yeah, of course. But sometimes we breeze over that because we're all making assumptions. But I think what you're saying is 5 different people could be making 5 different assumptions, and they're assuming they're all on the same page.
Right, exactly.
So unless you spell that out front,
right,
and the direction is clear, it can get messy real quick.
Right. And as I said, what has really brought this on has been the Nexus system.
So I should mention to our listeners and watchers that John and Legrand were part of our beta group for Nexus. And so they have been really instrumental in working with us, giving us great feedback, and also really showing us, instructing us as much as we're instructing you, I think. It's been a real strong partnership. So he's way down the road from most people that are just starting to onboard Nexus now.
Right. So we're very excited. I'm actually more excited about Nexus than I am Altium 18. And Altium 18, I'll tell you, you guys knocked it out of the park. I'm actually more excited about Nexus, because this is beyond PCB design. You guys have taken this now beyond the PCB. You've taken it into the project management area. You've taken this whole design process, and I have project managers now that have seen the Nexus system, and they go, we can use that. We can use that process. The project managers now can look at the process and see whatever area that they're concerned with. They can now look at that process and understand where it's at. So you guys have now taken the whole PCB design process and kind of put it on its head. And you've caused me, at least, to rethink this whole process.
Which is really exciting to hear from somebody who's been laying out boards and even instructing other people how to lay out boards for 20 years. So that's exciting to hear.
It's very exciting. But this, I think this would work in any situation. To understand what you're doing and how you're going to do it, and having a clear plan is going to be vital, especially with the environment we live in today. I mean, especially with the whole electronic industry and where it's headed.
Yeah, well, it's gotten so complex that it's hard to get your head around it sometimes, really.
It is, yeah.
I mean, and any one part of that, the design process is incredibly complex. The manufacturing is sourcing parts is incredibly complex and shifting all the time, and nothing's static.
Right.
Right. So it's like you're shooting at a target that's moving all the time, and you're trying to get, what do you call that? A bullseye.
Right. Exactly. I remember several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was sitting at PCB West, and people were amazed about how they were now going to be able to do 5 mil traces on boards.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to, and people were gasping, "Oh, that's amazing!" And
Right.
and now that's old technology. Think about it.
Which is stunning.
It
to me.
is. It is
Right.
absolutely stunning. But it tells you, not where we've been, but where we're heading. What's the industry going to look like in 5 more years? What's the industry going to look like in 10 years? And it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a part of this.
I agree. It is an exciting time. And I think that those of us in the electronics industry, that part of what motivates us is the excitement, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
Being on that forefront, like seeing, well, what is next, right?
Right.
And what can we do? Yesterday, you talked to us about the item manager. Would you
Yes.
touch on that slightly and how that sort of impacted your own design process?
Yes. One of the important parts for us was when I first started at Legrand, we had various designers who were using various libraries. So, and that doesn't.
Which is that's typical.
Typical,
I mean, it
right?
can.
That's
But the bigger the organization, the worse that can be.
the harder it is,
Yeah.
right? It becomes much more difficult the bigger a company becomes. But it also brings in a lot of risk with
Right.
a PCB design.
Right.
When what I call rogue libraries are used, and when someone creates their own library or things like that, and we had a lot of libraries. And
Like how many?
we
How many
had
designers? How many libraries
we had about at that time we had probably about 30 designers, and we probably had over 900 libraries
Whoa.
that were total in our library set. And Item Manager is a great tool that you guys have placed into Altium that allows me to look at a design and look at the sourcing for those parts, for those individual components. And what it does is it identifies whether a part is what you call managed or unmanaged.
Uh-huh.
So a managed part would be an example of a part that is under the vault system or under a specific library. We specifically use the vault system.
Okay.
And what it does is it tells me where the part came from, whether it's managed or unmanaged first off, and where it came from. And then if that part is managed, it then tells me what the life cycle is. It tells me if there's been updates done on the part or whether there is there's a new part for that in the library. So it will say that the part is out of date or it needs to be updated.
Okay.
Okay, so and then you simply go through a small process to update those components in that design. But we use it a lot when we're bringing in a new design and we're comparing it and we're starting to the design review process. We want to know where those parts came from.
Right.
So that's our first question is we ask, is we say, okay, where are these parts from? So it tells us managed and unmanaged parts. And then we want to know whether if the parts are managed, are they up to date with our library?
Right.
So and then we use that a lot. The item manager is probably one of the biggest tools we use because that tells us exactly where the design is at.
So you're ensuring then that you have the most current revision of any given part anytime. So
Right.
that's what you said, kind of like the risk mitigation or increasing the reliability
Right.
of the design.
Exactly.
Before you actually make the board or
Yeah.
get to that point and
Yeah.
you're like
You don't want to get to that point. Yeah. I was saying yesterday about how we've all, if you've been in this industry any period of time, you've put all the work into a fabrication and you lay your part down and you get everything nice and shiny and everything else and then you create your Gerber set and you send it out to a fab house and the fab house builds the boards, and then they go over to the assembly house and you're sitting there and your phone starts ringing.
uh-oh.
Like I'm sorry, but the part that you gave us doesn't fit on your board. Okay? And you have to make that what I call the long walk to the manager's office, where he then has to tell, you just have to tell him that, excuse me, but we just spent so much money on this project. We spent 3 months on this, and the boards are useless. We can't build the boards, and we've all been there. I mean,
it happens to everyone.
It happens to everyone, but
and that speaks not to the ineptitude of the designer, but the complexity of the process and
right.
the craziness of managing component libraries and keeping that up to date, because the data is fluid and rolling all the time.
Exactly.
And parts are coming in and out of the supply chain, and
right.
it's a very difficult thing to track.
It's a very difficult thing to track, but what we try to do is there are steps that can be taken to definitely lower the risk of that situation.
So you told a story yesterday which made me laugh, but also made me gasp at the same time. So why don't you know what I'm talking about, right? About,
I think so.
About the weekend. So why don't you share that story and sort of what got you to that place with coming from a place when you had all those designers and hundreds of libraries.
Yeah.
And discovering that when you did a root cause analysis, that most of the problems were either from footprint problems or component problems.
Right.
And then you did what about it?
Well, what we did was, I'm the sort of person that's, it's a little thing called baptism of fire, I guess we'll call it. But we had so many libraries in our system and people were using their own libraries and different tools that they had developed. I mean, they were setting up their own things. So we had about over 1,200 libraries at that time. And when we ran things through the item manager, we would see Joe's library.
You're like,
well,
Joe, we need to have a chat.
Yeah, Joe, that's not going to work anymore. I mean, we need to, because we had to centralize. That was the biggest problem. We had people that had rogue libraries, and they were causing problems, failures. They were causing the company money.
Right, which back to your point is when the manager's agenda is to say, if we miss our window time to market,
right,
heads will roll okay, so you drilled down and said, okay, what's causing that?
Yes.
And you're like, rogue libraries.
Rogue libraries. And what we did was, on a Friday evening, after everyone had left, I basically go in and deleted all the library. So that was an interesting Monday morning.
I would have liked to be a fly on the wall on that Monday morning. Did you show up for work on Monday?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Because I was going to be there because basically it had to be done. The integrity of a PCB design, which means that we try to put out the highest quality board that we can put out the very first time.
Yep.
We don't have time to do 4, 5, 6 spins of this.
Right.
The very first time, how do we have a high integrity board? Well, number one is our libraries.
Right.
I want all designers pulling a single part from a single library that has a single footprint, a single sourcing, and everything was in line and everything was correct.
Right.
And that was how we began to basically rebuild our libraries.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that time, is that when you were onboarding Vault, or you had Vault, but just all these rogue libraries?
All the rogue libraries,
So you just shut them off and said, there's one place you can get components. Here it is.
Right, exactly. And that was our whole purpose for getting the Vault system, was a single library source.
Right.
That was it.
Tell us a little bit. We had talked several months ago, and I was really impressed with your whole vetting system, really, that you've built internally of making sure. How do you make sure that the parts that you're putting in the Vault are known good parts and that they're verified and that they're up to date?
Right. Well, what we do is we first off, in the part itself, we follow IPC standard for our part creation. We use the IPC 7351, and the IPC standards are our guideline
Right.
for creating parts.
Uh-huh.
And what we have now done is, because of Altium's sourcing capabilities now, we're able now to see sourcing. One of the greatest features that I have now looked at with Altium 18 has been your active BOM feature. The ability to take a BOM and throw it out there to all the vendors and suppliers and get feedback from them to determine what is the quality, what is the probability of this part. And we actually taken several of our boards that are in production right now through this active BOM process.
Uh-huh.
And what we got back was we would get red flags on components. We would get notices like this part is end of life.
And on active parts?
Active parts
that you're building.
That we're building.
Oh boy.
So we would get red flags,
Right.
stating, okay, this part is the end of life. This part is not recommended for new designs. This part is obsolete.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it was a situation where that was the information we needed.
Right.
Really.
Right.
That gives us the red flags, not at the end of the project, not after the fabrication's there,
Right.
not after the assembly's done or started, and after it's gone to the customer especially.
Yes.
It tells us at the beginning.
Right.
The very first day when our schematic is complete, we run it through the active BOM feature,
Okay.
and we get the red flags. Because a lot of times what designers do is they will either copy a design from a previous from a previous design,
Right.
or they will simply lay down a part. All right, that's their job. That's the double
Right.
E's responsibility.
Right.
What has happened now is we have been given the ability and the tools to make sure that we are using good parts. So if I run a board now through the active BOM feature, and it gives me a red flag saying this is not the best part, this is not recommended for new designs, then I can go back to the double E now and I can say, you know what, we should consider not using this. And
Preemptively and proactively before you're to the expensive part of the process.
exactly, yes. And
Yeah.
so that now we're able to constantly keep our sourcing information up to date so that we know exactly who we're buying the part from, and then also whether that part is deprecating in the life cycle.
So how many parts is Legrand managing inside of your vault in your library now?
Right now we have about 5,000, 6,000 parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you, so using the active BOM is one, but didn't you tell me that you have a system of verification before things go in or out, come out of
Yeah.
the vault?
Yeah.
It's just an internal process.
It's
that
an
you have?
internal process that
Right.
when anybody creates a new part, it's given a life cycle of new. So that tells us it's a new part, and what we then do is we go through a verification process of that part. We'll pull up the data sheet, we'll verify the footprint, we'll verify the 3D model, the schematic symbol, of course, and everything else. And before then, then we can change the life cycle to released, to where
Okay.
it's now available. So we make sure that this is one of the features also of Item Manager. It will tell you if the component life cycle is new or if it's in a release state.
Okay.
So we can actually see, oh, that part hasn't been verified yet. So we can then go in and make sure that everything's perfectly okay with it.
How nice, by the way, to have that clean of a library. Like,
Oh.
I think that's really rare. I don't think that's something
Yeah.
everybody could boast about. I don't
Well,
know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't.
I wouldn't say it's too clean. It's a constant effort. It's a constant.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's something you have to continually manage.
Yes. Yeah, you constantly have to manage it. You constantly have to keep a look at it, a watch after it. And a lot of times we have components that pop up there and they just don't match. Nothing matches on the data sheet or anything. And they easily get deleted. So we try to keep in control of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned to me about that in your multiple locations you have 3 different PLM systems too.
Yeah.
How does that come into play?
Well, we have different divisions, and each one of those, some of those have different PLM systems, and they also have different numbering systems for the part.
Right.
So, for example, you can have like a 1K resistor, 805 resistor that you have in your library. Well, for us, for one division, it's one part number. For another division, it's another part number. And for another division, it could be another part number. So what we did was we actually set up parameters inside of that part. We set up a what's called a CPN, a company part number.
Okay.
So we then set up a list of company part numbers that we would use for that
Okay.
single item.
Okay.
So we could put in there then all the different part numbers. So whenever anyone lays that part down, they're also laying down all the information for that part.
Wow.
So all the information for whatever division is going to use it.
Right.
So it makes it very handy to then integrate the whole process.
Right. So now that you've got this centralized and cleaned up and nobody wants to kill you anymore for deleting their parts libraries,
Right.
tell us how the overall, now kind of backing the camera up here, what's the overall effect that it's had actually on your quality, your time to market, you know, the role of standardization? What has that done for you guys really as a company?
It's really helped to streamline the whole process, because once we starting with good information from the library, then we can talk. Then now what we're talking about is how are we going to streamline our how we're going to standardize our process. How are we want to make sure that all the designers are first off, they're starting off from the same sheet. They're starting off at the same location. So they're all working from the same library. They're working from the same templates now, and they're working from the same guidelines, procedures, things like that. So what it's helped is it's streamlined, basically taking a design through different divisions, and it can be handed off from division to division, and it can just be carried and continually worked on
without the disconnect.
Without a disconnect, without except for a couple people, I'll tell you.
There's always those couple people.
Yeah. There's always the couple people. I have to tell you that there's one person in particular. What he does is, the convention is in Altium is that the top the component layer is red and the solder side is blue.
Right.
Well, what he does is he'll go in and he'll swap those.
Just to mess with your head,
just to mess with my head, right? So, but it's so other than that, what it's done is it's called us to streamline the process. So now with the Nexus system coming in, we are going to be bringing that online. With the Nexus system coming online, we are now looking at deeper our processes, looking further about our process. And I'm kind of looking at it in the way of where if you have a set process and you have a set group of people, a team that is responsible for certain tasks, then we can actually then have milestone setups in our process where we simply say, at this gatekeeping item or this moment of our process, we want to do, for example, a design review.
Oh, like an audit of
an audit of where the design is at. And then also then we can then assign people specific tasks in that process. So basically we can go from there into then checklist to, we say, okay, we give a checklist to an individual that says, check 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is it correct? So what we're looking now at is streamlining our entire design review process, looking at decreasing our time to market, decreasing the time that board is in design. And the Nexus system is going to definitely be a major part of that whole process, because with that then we were able to go into web reviews, which we're very excited about. being able to do web reviews and have people actually go onto a website
Yes.
to look at this. They don't need to have Altium installed and go through the licensing and all this and that.
Right.
They just get the email and the link, and they go in and review documents. So that's really exciting for us. But we actually are seeing a quicker time to market. We're seeing better improved boards. And it's really helped us also to do a self-audit, which means that when we do a fabrication of a board, for example, and we then go into assembly, what we then do is we do a DFM. We do a design for manufacturing review. We then look at the board and say, okay, now what was the design flaws here? What was then, we also do a build review from an assembly house. They come
Right.
back with a report that says, oh, we had this and this and this issue.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
So now what we're able to do is that drives the design from there. That then we look back at our libraries, whether we need to improve our footprints,
I see.
or do we need to improve in some way our process. Or if we look at the specific layout, or we look at component problems in such like a build review, then we can look at our design review checklist.
So it sounds like an ongoing real-time optimization of your entire process.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you begin a process and you go out and you do that process, we close in the circle. We bring it back to the beginning and say, did we accomplish what we started out to do?
Right.
All right. We talk about at the beginning why and how, or we talked about why and what.
Right.
Well, at the very back end, it gets looped back there. Did we accomplish what we were doing?
Right.
Because I'll tell you, a lot of times we can start a project and we just kind of go down the primrose path of design.
Yes.
And we never get to what we were accomplishing.
Right. That can happen.
And we never get to it. We never accomplish it. And
Right.
a lot of times those sort of designs and those sort of PCB just kind of die by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know, that was fun. That was a nice fun project. But
Now let's go do another one.
let's do another one. Yeah. But I've always told the designers that I work with, I said, look, you do not get paid for designing. You don't get paid for designing. This company is in business for one thing. It's not to pay you to be a designer. It's a company, well, in the manufacturing field now.
Right.
Maybe not in a service area, but in a manufacturing, you're here designing because you're building something that ultimately needs to be put on a shelf somewhere and someone needs to buy.
Right.
We're here to sell stuff.
Right.
And a lot of times we lose sight of that.
Yeah.
We lose sight of the fact that, oh, well, this is a nice, fun project, but do we ever accomplish what we started out to do?
Right.
So what we try to do is we're definitely trying to constantly improving our process.
Right.
And constantly improving our designs and things like that. And I think that's done through our review process and looking at the very forefront of what are we accomplishing?
Right.
Did we do it? How
Right.
well did we do it?
Right.
You know.
And where did we maybe fall down, and how can we improve that?
Right.
Here at Altium internally, we call that a postmortem, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right. We set up a process. We set what we're gonna, and we go through it, and then when it's done, we come back and we do what's known sort of in the marketplace as a postmortem.
Right.
And go, well, how did that go? Did we do what we set out to do at the beginning? You know, so it's very much the same of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is because if you don't come back and do that check, you could be left to center by the time you get to the end, but you're like, oh, that looks good, it works, yeah, and
Right.
and you miss the target. but it's together and it's functional, but you miss the mark, right?
Right. So it's not a board of high quality.
Right.
You got 98%,
Yes,
but
right.
you missed that 2%. I'm actually concerned about the 2%. How can we improve the process? How can we make this quicker? How can we better this?
Right. Well, I'm just in awe of the work you do, actually, John, and I never get tired of hearing you talk about it because it's refreshing, and you've got a big team, and it's a complex process, but the discipline that you've brought to it is really impressive. So now I'd like to ask you about, is there anything else, first of all, that I missed that I asked you about that?
I don't think so. I think we covered.
So now I want to just kind of put a microphone in front of your mouth and do a little self-serving moment here. It's not really self-serving, but last October, you were one of our speakers for Altium Live.
Yes.
And you had a lot of really positive things to say about that. I would like your honest input because hopefully you'll be back again to speak at Altium Live. I'd like you to encourage other designers that maybe didn't have the chance to go.
Yes.
Tell them reasons why you found it valuable and so on and so forth. So if you would.
It was of course it was the first one. So, and it was phenomenal. And I felt when you first heard of I thought about Altium Live, okay, this is going to be a 3-day or a 2-day commercial regarding Altium 18, and you're just going to sit there and just see the demos, and you guys are just going to pat each other on the back as designers, and everyone's going to,
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out to be that way. What happened was this was far more than just about Altium 18. This was about the design process. This was about designers. This was an opportunity for designers to rub shoulders with some phenomenal people and some of the leaders in the industry. And this was just 2 days of just great learning. To hear from experts, to hear from the people that are the leaders. That's the only way I can really describe them.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, the keynotes we had were thought
phenomenal.
leaders. Right.
They were just absolutely. Mr. Holden.
Yeah, Happy Holden.
Happy
Dan
Holden
Beaker.
was just phenomenal. I've been reading one of my favorite books. It sits on my desk right now. Is the printed circuit handbook.
Isn't that a great book?
This thick.
It is that thick, yeah.
But
Happy doesn't ever sign up for anything that is short.
That's right.
Brevity is not his skill in life.
But it was a phenomenal time, and I'm really looking forward to October. I mean, to have it again. And I understand we're going to add the 1 day.
We are going to add the day on the front end because, and we're doing that again, we really are trying to make it all about people like you and not make it an Altium commercial, because I think EDA tool companies in general have been absolutely guilty of putting on what they call user conferences.
Yeah.
But it's like, we're going to lock you in a room and beat you over the head with our products and see if you'll buy some more stuff from us, right?
Exactly.
So we try to really focus on what do you guys want, what's of value to you. And again, this is a complex world we swim in. So let's just bring all the experts in, bring on this. And of course we did launch Altium 18 and we talked about Nexus there, but only, 45 minutes on day 1, 45 minutes on day 2.
And that's all
the rest of the time it was not us at all. It was about celebrating designers and the craft of design. And then, but when we did the exit surveys, we asked, what did you like, what you didn't like? And most of the feedback was largely good. But the one piece of feedback that people gave us is, gee, we wish there was just a little bit more that was actually tool training, getting into some of the more advanced features that maybe during the workaday world, they don't have time to just sit down and learn and drill deep into some of the advanced features. So we've added a day on the front end that we're calling Altium University, and then we're going to just do tracks all day on the first day. So, and it's optional. You can go or not go. If you're an expert and you don't need any tool training, you don't have to go. But at least it's there, and we've kept it out so that we can kind of stay design somewhat design agnostic on those other 2 days and really give you good depth and training and bring in the best experts. Wait till you see. So, so far for Altium Live, this is like breaking news right here.
Oh, really?
You're the first to know.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, since you've been so generous with your time. So, 3 keynote speakers that we have signed up right now is Eric Bogatin.
Oh, right.
I bet you've read a few of his books.
Yes.
Rick Hartley.
Okay.
And then a young buck by the name of Jeremy Blum.
All right.
Who worked at Google, went to Cornell, sharp electrical engineer, and he's at a startup now called Shaper.
Okay.
And so he is like Forbes 30 under 30 technologist, and he's like the startup whiz-bang kid.
Right.
So that'll appeal, I think, to the younger designers.
I think so.
And I haven't picked the 4th yet, but
all right.
So stay tuned. I'll keep one secret to myself. But those are 3
please.
for San Diego.
All right, fantastic.
And then Dan Beeker will be joining us in Munich.
Okay.
And I haven't decided yet. We're still working on the other ones in Munich, but it should be another great lineup of keynotes. And we'll put out a call for presentation soon. So
right. So
and I've already inked you in. So
yes, you have.
You don't get a vote. Right.
I know, and you're probably going to eke me into Munich also.
Good.
So I'll be
whatever
ready.
we have to do to suck you in. So thank you for the Altium Live commercial.
Right. I would just add to that. I would just say that if you're kind of sitting on the fence about going or not going, go. You won't be sorry. You won't be sorry. I can promise you that. It's definitely a great time. It's a learning experience. It's a time to rub shoulders. It's a time to kind of get away from your job, kind of get away from all the hassles. For those of you who are going to be in the cold areas of the country, such as Montana, in the middle of October, I would highly recommend you to please come to beautiful San Diego, where it will be a chilly 72 degrees.
Yeah.
And
on Coronado Island.
On Coronado Island.
With water on both sides of the hotel.
Exactly.
Just saying.
It's going to be a great time. But above that, it's going to be a great learning experience. It's going to be a great time to come, learn, and grow. I'm really a senior in not just age, but also in this industry. And one of our concerns is, and one of the concerns that was brought up in PCB magazine just last year, was how there's a mass exodus right now of PCB designers, and that there is a vacuum happening, that there are now more jobs available than there are designers. And that is not just a concern for me, it's also a challenge. So a challenge to train and to teach the younger generation coming up, to teach them and train them about this whole thing. It's a phenomenal industry. It's a cutting edge industry. But it's not something where somebody they grow up, 4 or 5 years old. Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a PCB designer.
I know. I always say we all got here by accident.
Right.
It's like some windy road that
Exactly.
landed us here.
I started off in my career as an electronic technician, and I started in that route, and I finally got pulled into the PCB design area, and I actually started off with Protel 98. You
are dating yourself.
Way
just saying.
back when. So but it was phenomenal. It was a career that is always changing, and I love it. It's just,
it is.
But I would highly encourage everyone to be there and to make sure that you come there to learn, because that's the whole purpose of it. It's not going to be a 3-day commercial for Altium. This is about you and what you need. Okay.
Thank you. I'll give you your $20 bill later.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for the plug.
All right. Check us in the mail, right? Gotcha.
Yeah, check us in the mail. Well, you plugged that way more than I'd hoped for. So thank you for doing that. But I know you're a fan, and I appreciated the feedback you had was music to my ears, because what we intended to deliver, you said we delivered. So
yes,
that makes my heart sing. And being an old, by the way, I won't give away this secret, but I will put a little hook in you.
Either your age or your weight.
By the time, no, neither one of those. No. Before Altium Live or at Altium Live, one, I first want to say thank you that you are one of the people in the industries that are training up the next generation through the people you're training at Legrand. So I really appreciate how you personally contribute. But either before or at Altium Live, you will hear something very exciting from Altium about things we're going to be doing extremely proactively to help grow up the PCB design community, and in a way where they can go out and use any tool they want, but we have an intention to help grow that next, and we hope people will use Altium, but we're not.
Right. It's not required.
It's not required.
That's good.
So stay tuned.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an exciting time.
It's coming, and I feel really privileged to be in the place I am because, like you, I've been around a little while, and luckily Altium is a generous EDA company, and they're allowing me to step in and do some of these things. So
I thought your big announcement was at Altium Live this year is going to be Altium 19. That's what's going to be the release.
Oh, shocker! Spoiler alert! Altium 19.
Altium 19. You've heard it here first.
At least we're consistent.
You're consistent, yeah. I'm glad you guys got, many years ago, you got away from the 2010, like the 2010 stage. I don't know how many were still here, but you did the summer and winter and summer release. It was like a fashion show. It was like summer and winter.
Our summer line.
Your summer line versus your winter line.
Yeah.
It was like,
well, then if we killed off like teams of developers, we decided to stop, I'm sure. Or they're like, why does it keep crashing? Maybe we should only do one release a year.
Yeah.
Just saying,
right.
No. Well, thank you again. This has been a blast. It's always great to spend time with you. And thanks for teaching us and being such a great contributor to the industry at large.
Well, we appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, this has been Judy Warner with the OnTrack Podcast and my friend John Watson from Legrand. Please tune in again next time. And until then, remember to always stay on track.